be back this year to talk to you about our second year of the Gardens of Hope. So as you recall, this project is something that we initiated, spoke with the club, wanted to bring this project. We had high hopes, well, we have high hopes of a global grant, but one of the things that we felt very strong about was to make sure we had some data points behind it. So we gave ourselves 3 years to start looking at beginning the project, understanding, what were the hits, the misses, reevaluating for year 2, and now that we're going into year 3, we are going to be presenting a little bit of an overview of where we started, where we're going, and what goals we have. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mike, and he can give you a little information on the start of the project.
So the main purpose of the Gardens of Hope is to provide impoverished families in central Mexico really the means and knowledge. And the second piece, knowledge, is key for sustaining and growing their own gardens over time. And the sustainable gardens also aligns very well. You can see the 5 bullet points below, from no poverty, zero hunger. The local municipality in Mexico also has goals for nonprofit groups that the Gardens of Hope aligns to, and really facilitated a good partnership. Facilitated a good partnership between the Gardens of Hope and the local government to make sure that these projects were successful. And we're going to show you a short video here.
What you're seeing is just basically some drone footage. This is basically what the communities that we're helping. We'll talk a little bit about how many communities we're impacting, but this we really felt gave you an idea of how difficult it is to even just get a garden. We have to really work and prepare the soil to make sure that it is going to be successful. And the communities, as you can see, look pretty close, but in actuality, they're pretty spaced out. And so the families, when we select them, a lot of it has to do with how well do you work, for those that are being selected, do you have the space in your land? Do you have land? Do we need to kind of go into like a family members plot, to have your garden? A little bit about the background in terms of the Gardens of Hope, just very quickly, since we do have guests. So my parents are both born and raised in Mexico. They immigrated to the United States. So my siblings and I are first generation. And I spent a lot of summers, going and visiting family. I still have family there. And so part of what I always knew is I always wanted to come back and give back. And so at the passing of my mom, what brought me to Rotary obviously is the community involvement and the work that we do here locally, but it was international for me is my why. It was definitely, I knew that one day, there was going to be something that we were going to do that was going to bring me back to central Mexico. And so it just turned out to be these organic gardens. And so the love that we have for this project, we're so thankful that the club has gotten behind us and helped us. And so now as we're getting into, year 3, seeing a lot of clubs really interested in partnering up and leveraging the resources is very, very exciting. So now we'll have Mike talk to you a little bit about what the kits include and kind of the process that we take with the families is.
So after the families are identified to help them start up their garden, basically they get a kit for around $170 US, and it provides a system that can support, as you can see there, almost 72 square yards of land where they have the irrigation supplies you saw from the video. It is a bit of an arid climate. The soil is a little sandy, so they have the proper irrigation system, the fertilizer, some of the other collateral for blight control and iron mesh to keep some of the rodents and other critters out in the seed packet. So really it starts them off to be successful in their gardens with everything that they need. So you can see here just a couple of pictures of the seeds and some of the irrigation. So, all of this comes to them, and then they have the technical assistance in addition to that to show them how to use it. So on the technical assistance, there is a team, and this is really key to make sure that it's sustainable. I think some of the past projects, they gave the families kits and it really didn't stick. And part of this project is not only giving them the raw materials and the supplies, but having technical experts and twice-a-month sessions to go over and follow up with the families on preparing the land. How are they sowing their seeds, doing their fertilization, to make sure that they have the knowledge to be successful over the long term. And then the cost associated with this is about $45 per year. So when you couple that with the raw materials for the kit, you're in about the $215 range.
Some interesting facts about Mexico and politics. Typically, when you are bringing in a new government, they use things such as gardens as a way to entice folks, for their votes. And there are many gardens that are handed out. One of the things that has been very positive for us has been being able to meet with the government officials, knowing that we come as a non-partial entity, but showing them that the way that we are working this project, we are able to have great success because of that 1 year of technical assistance. What happens when they give out these gardens is basically they will bring them the seeds and whatever else they're gonna, give these families, but there's no follow-up, there's really no training. They don't really show them how to prepare the soil. So by us coming and teaming up with the local municipalities, they're starting to say, hey, this works. They have basically no skin in the game other than wanting to help these families, which has been great. And also the families, when we first approached and started working with these communities, they also wanted to know, well, what's the catch? So it was really interesting to see, the thought process with families not even wanting a garden because they didn't want to owe anyone anything. So it really has been great. Now also the things that we are noticing with the gardens, or because of the gardens, is the produce. I mean, it's a very carb-rich diet, and so this is really shifting the way in which folks eat. At first, there were a lot of vegetables that, to be fair, people have never heard of some things, and so it was instrumental to meet with them as communities to kind of find that leverage of like, okay, we're going to try this recipe, and everybody tried different things. So like the eating habits of folks is definitely changing, and we hope to be able to help in the future see a decrease in diabetes and things that are very high percentage in Mexico just because of the high carb diet.
So these are just a couple of photos of the gardens. I'll let Claudia scale through these, but you can see there the gardens where they're starting to grow, the irrigation systems, and the technical assistance that's provided to the families. And just a couple more snapshots here, more of the same, different gardens in the areas. You can see there's variability in terms of size and location around the area that we're focusing on. So the communities served, you can see just to give some perspective, if you look at the Google map there, so the biggest nearby city is called Aguascalientes. It's about 1 million people, more or less, I think, roughly the size of Portland. About 30 or 40 minutes there's a small town called Rincon de Ramos, and most of the communities around there where the gardens are at El Bajío, El Saltillo, Mar Negro, and Puerto del Muerto. So you can just see on the map there, I'd say there are a couple miles just in that general circle around Rincon where the families are located, and that's been the primary focus area, identifying families who have the land but just need the assistance with the supplies and the technical assistance to start up their gardens. So that's really where the focus are. And you can see there, it's about, this particular location is about more or less 4.5 hour drive northeast of Guadalajara is where they're located in Mexico. So these are just a couple of photos from the various towns.
If I can add highlights here, if you notice there's a Rotary, there are Rotary banners here, and we have partnered up with 2 Rotary clubs in Aguascalientes. There's a total of 4 Rotary clubs out there, and one of them being our major partner. It's the Rotary de Aguascalientes. It's the largest club. They also have the Rotaract Club, and it's a pretty healthy, robust Rotaract Club that has been instrumental in being our boots on the ground. A lot of the families, we'll talk a little bit about a new area that we came in to provide gardens, but a lot of families we noticed early on really needed that support. Some of them are single mothers with kids, and so it's very difficult to do everything that they need to do, and on top of that, care for these gardens. So we had a lot of boots on ground aside from our technical support team to help, and so Rotary has been very present and instrumental in us being successful during the visits to the families.
Maybe just a minute there. So first start in March of 2021. The first 40 kits were delivered and had a meeting with each community. The families were selected by the local government, social services of Rincon de Ramos, so that was that area I mentioned north of Aguascalientes. And then the technical assistance team and local authorities all attended the meeting, so that's how this project got started.
And then in April of 2021, we had our first field trip. We had, from this group, Rotarians, we have a cost-based club, and I'd like to kind of point out, because these are folks that are part of our club, but they live in other areas of the United States. And why our club? It was connections. Daryl Carney, we've got Lynn, we've got Portland, and then we have Erica. They all have nonprofits, and we all used to, we all go on each other's field trips. They have never been asked to join Rotary. And so when we were talking about doing a cost-based club and what that would look like, they were really fascinated by the idea of belonging to a Rotary E-Club whose passion was international service. So we typically tend to go on each other's trips and help and support their causes. And they came to the first international trip. Julia Kohler, Rotarian in our club. Jessica Lynch is a satellite club member. Teresa is also a satellite club member. This is an individual who was part of the government. She was the wife of the president, and she was in charge of all of social services. So we worked very closely with her, and then we've got our technical assistant managers that oversee all of that. So I just wanted to kind of share what we did for that trip. It was a very quick week, and we worked our tails off. We helped families prepare the soil. Some families had already gone through that, so we were going through their gardens to make sure that the technical support team felt that everything was planted accordingly, and if not, we had to replant. So it was a lot of work. It was very hot, and it was during COVID, so masks and all the things. It was wonderful to get to know all of the families. So just being able to exchange ideas of what was working, what they would like to see was fantastic. Let's see, is there anything else on that?
So we'll go through a couple photos here. These are just some of the pictures that were captured during that first session where we had the Rotary work crews helping out with the families. So as far as the results, so really, again, the purpose of this project is not to increase the income of the families by selling the harvest, but there is an opportunity to develop that, where there's excess. Really, the main purpose, again, is to help the families feed themselves, and as Claudia mentioned earlier, really to diversify their sources of nutrition, getting more vegetables along with the carbohydrates. And there's obviously a financial benefit for this as well. Most of the families are very impoverished, so what they can save by growing their own food, that's certainly less than they would have to spend going to the grocery store. So as far as the first year results, just to give you an idea of the cost and the value, across the 4 communities, you have 10 families listed there. We have 3 harvests. So basically, if they're based on their growing season, right, which is, they're further south than here, so obviously it stays warmer longer. They can get three harvests in throughout the season, starting in early spring, going to the fall. The investment is around, $1,900 US dollars across the 10 families. So, about 190 per, 1,900 was the total for each line item. And the potential value of what they produced, if you multiply, making some assumptions, right, on the 12 products times how much they harvested, the $1,900 investment across those 10 families yielded over, and this is all in US dollars, over $17,000 of actual value of the products produced. So, really good win for those communities.
Well, and on this, I think the win-win is of the families that started, 10, 9, 9, 10, continued on to the second year where we just provided support with the hose and the seeds. So it has been over the 2 families that did not continue just didn't have the land space. So we actually took those gardens and moved them over to one of the other families and just increased their size so that nothing went to waste.
So this here shows some of the calculations that went into that number in terms of the price per pound and pounds produced. But I think what's most interesting is probably on the left. You're probably all thinking, what do they grow? And it was interesting for me, I have to say, growing up in the Midwest and coming from a culture where most people have gardens, to where in a way it's somewhat rare down there. So it was really encouraging to see this, where if you look at the gardens, they're planting radishes, squash, carrot, lettuce. You can read down the list from the onions to peppers and tomatoes, and really enabling the new capability for those families that maybe some of us in the U.S. who kind of grew up in that environment take for granted, but really add to their food security.
And so these numbers, we've got a member of our technical assistance team that works at the very high level of the agriculture department in Mexico. And so he's able to get us all the numbers, in terms of what the market value for all of the crops. And so that's where the figures came from, just to give us a perspective of, what is being grown. Now, this second year, not only do we have additional families that we're helping to sustain the first year families with the hose and the additional seeds, we actually went into a girls' home by the name of Librada Orozco. And this girls' home is for young pregnant women, girls really. The youngest was 8. There are 12 girls currently in this home, and the house is being built. So one of the goals that was set for them was definitely partnering up with local organizations, city restaurants associations, and just building them gardens. Number one, so that they could have an opportunity to come out and just work the land with their kids. A lot of them aren't going to school because they're tending to the children, so they're really kind of stuck. And these girls can't go home because they're not allowed, basically, to have any family contact. So if one of the girls decides to leave the home, let's say by 18, they cannot take the child. So it is a very strict environment for these girls. They do have a lot of support. They come in and get a lot of therapy. So a lot of organizations really working with this group. And so what we decided to come in and do, and this was the Club of Aguascalientes. The president last year was this gentleman and his wife. So the Rotarians, I think is what the Rotarians. So she's very connected to this home, and she just really loved the idea of the gardens. So we felt, okay, let's go meet, let's go see if this is something that really they can do. The goal was to provide them with about 8 gardens because they had the space. And this is where all of the volunteers with the Rotaract came in, because we needed a lot of hands. That's a lot of produce. And the goal for them is to have these restaurants buy the produce. Not only will they have their source, but to actually have a source of income for what they need, their studies, or just to have, you know, an account that is going to be used for the girls, whether it's trade school, whether it's for education, but definitely wanted to maximize those resources. We also had the company there in Aguascalientes, this John Deere, came in and helped us do all of the preparing of the soil. So that was a really fun journey. We had some folks, they do a lot of global grants in this area in Mexico. So we had a team from Rotary from Texas that is very interested in partnering with our club, you know, for that global grant initiative. They have a lot of experience with an iBank there, so there was a lot of interest with that. And this is kind of like our newest labor of love with the gardens. And as we all know, Rotary is very focused on girls, and so we just really felt that this was going to be a wonderful project for our club. We had a good conversation with Nancy Boyle, who's running district-wide, and so, you know, she wanted to learn more about what we were doing and see how that this could fit, you know, in terms of the district and how we could help promote the work that is being done with this home.
So we have a video at the end, so we'll kind of go through these fairly fast, but these just show some of the landscape. This is the girls' home. Before, it was, you know, basically just vacant, and now the soil is being prepared.
Lots of rock.
Lots of rock, yeah. So you can see the soil there. It's, like I said, it's a little sandy, a little more rocky than what we have here in Oregon.
And these are some of the girls and their little kids.
The Rotaractors, yeah.
And the Rotaractors.
And then here's a picture of some of the second year. So 20 additional families, you know, working on their gardens. So the project is growing year over year. And some more photos. The people too are really proud. And Claudia, I took the tour. They were very proud to show off their gardens and how successful they were.
So this is also new. We received a call from the mayor of Tepezalan, which is it's a community about an hour away from where we have the 4 existing communities, and she was very interested in joining forces. That this year she essentially matched what we gave. So we are growing in the number of families, and we are now in 2 additional communities in a different area of the region. So these are just more pictures, and we're going to show a video. One thing to note, just very quickly before we show you the video, is based on the projections that we have and based on what we learned from our first cohort, first year, we feel very strongly that this new community is going to have even more remarkable results than the first one because of all of the key learnings that we've had for the second year. So everybody's very excited. They're very proud. Like Mike says, when we go and we visit the families, I mean, they cannot wait until we go in and visit them, and they're showing us everything. I mean, it's pretty, it's an honor, you know, to go visit them and to see, you know, what a lot of us take for granted, what is everything for them. So again, next steps, obviously the partnerships that we have with the University of Aguascalientes, the Scouts Mexico are also volunteering with us, the state government, the Rotary clubs. Our volunteers are always recruiting other volunteers. We're planning a Rotary trip to Mexico. So if you're interested, please let me know. We usually try to keep it between 10 and 12 people, just so it's manageable. We're going to continue to do report outs and start a bit social media marketing. And we'd love for our goal this year to be 100 families. So we're going to get working on promoting this in our district and beyond. We did show a video last year. We want to show the same video because we felt that there were going to be new people that may not have seen it. But if you have any questions, we can have a couple of minutes at the end. It just gives you an idea of how the communities work together, how those of us that go on the field trips, what you would be doing. It's really exciting. Like I mentioned before, the families are very thankful. And I would like to just say thank you so much to the Rotary Club Forest Grove for supporting this, for making this just a high priority for the international projects. We're just getting started, but we really felt strongly that we wanted to have data before we really ventured into the global grants, because that's another beast in and of itself. So we really feel that we know what we're doing out there. We've got a lot of support from the local governments, from the Rotary clubs. So it's just this baby that everybody wants to be a part of. And we're protecting it quite a bit just to make sure that it doesn't get so big that it isn't going to be sustainable. So I think what we're doing in terms of how we're choosing to scale is the way to go. And having more families help to promote this and being volunteers to other families has been key and instrumental. What questions might you have that Mike and I can answer?
I have a Rotary question. I've heard you mention Rotary and I'm just wondering, culturally, is that something that still exists in Mexico? Like, are women not allowed in Rotary, or what's the?
So yeah, unfortunately, so I've visited clubs in Guatemala and also in Mexico. I would say in Guatemala you've got just a very, very low number of female Rotarians, and in Mexico it's same thing. This club in particular, it's very interesting because, you know, we talked to the president and we just kind of had some round tables, and you know, the women they like it the way it is. They like being Rotarians, and the men just don't want women in Rotary still. So it is fascinating to go in there and to kind of speak and present as a female Rotarian. And the feedback we get is great, but it's changed. So, Tom.
Interesting, because the Rotarian word or phrase is what was applied to women in Rotary before women were allowed in Rotary in the U.S., I believe. Way back many decades. Yeah. It's been really old.
And so it's interesting because they meet just like at the same time, they kind of separate. And the wife is kind of like their president. It's just very fascinating.
Like I did a question. How are our families selected for the program?
So that's usually done with the social services. They will have kind of an idea of families that they've worked with that could really use. You know, and also families who would do well with this and who have support. Jim?
I was wondering, the availability of the land. Who owns the land?
Well, the families own like their plots, but there are some folks who don't have that. But if they're selected, they might have a family member who has a huge plot, in which case we can still provide them with a garden. It's just not located in their home. Yes.
Are all of these communities in Jalisco?
So all of these communities are in Aguascalientes. So they're close to Jalisco.
Okay.
Okay.
Are individuals able to sponsor, like the kit was, you know, like
so some of the
$15 could be
Yeah, so some of the things that we're going to be working on that are in the works right now, we've got a couple of fundraisers that are going to be happening. And then also to be able to set up, if people want to sponsor families, we've already worked on a QR code where we're going to be scanning the plot of the family so that you could, in theory, go and look and see how they're doing real time. So we've got some really fun ideas to be able to have folks, and we do have folks who have sponsored that have, talked to us and said, hey, we want to sponsor, 5 families. And so that is definitely something that we will be providing more information on as well.
You mentioned the local politicians use the gardens to garner votes, and so I'm curious, when you first went in there, were they a little apprehensive with?
Yes.
How did that go?
Well, that they were unsure. Basically, it was like, why? They wanted to know what was behind the reason that we wanted to come in and to do this. So when we said, look, we're part of Rotary, we're also doing this as a nonprofit, and so it was kind of like, what's in it for us? And when they saw that we really just coming in to help the community, and now that we're going into year 3, now we've got a list of people that want to participate, which is why now the community mayors are coming to us saying, okay, well, what if we, moving forward, if you guys sponsor, maybe we'll match, so it's like, so right now it's just the scaling up. We would love to be able to say, gosh, 400 gardens would be great, but we just don't have that manpower to be able to do it, its due diligence, so that it is a sustainable project moving forward. Well, once again, everybody, thank you so much for supporting this project, and we look forward to having you all join us maybe on the next trip, and more information to follow in regards on how you as an individual could help sponsor a garden.
Thank you, Claudia.